Summer is up 2-1-0.
Hi, so I have 3 questions for you. I'd like to start with, are you certain that you have the right people in the right positions right now? 2, are you finding that in the midst of growth, you're hitting the skids with drama at the executive level? 3, why do companies fail to pivot when it's most important? They're all human issues, and we're all humans. I'm Summer Anderson. I'm with Human Capital Solutions, and we specialize in finding executives for the technology industry. I've spent 20 years of my career in executive search, and those 20 years were spent with people like Heidrick & Struggles, Booz Allen Hamilton, Allergan, and then Frost Data Capital. And in the process, there was a lot of great best practices that were just drilled into me. And those still ride with me. But what I found through the process is there are some significant downfalls, or maybe just chinks in the armor. And one of those primary things is taking away from the relationships that are built. What we've done is we've taken and innovated a process that was once really transactional and transitioned it into something that's transformational. So how we get there is a couple of different things. There's pillars that really make up how we frame up a search. There's vision, there's technology, there's culture. And that's where we really lay the foundation. What is it specifically that's special about this company? And we go deep to learn what that is. So let me give you an example to kind of frame up what that looks like and how it plays out. I was engaged to find a CTO for a company recently. And this was a situation where we had investors that were saying, guys, you're not going to get to triple X millions with this particular CTO. Well, he is brilliant. He's put together technology that's going to take the storm or it's going to take everybody by storm at the Fortune 50 level. It's not scalable. You've got to get somebody in here who's done this before so you don't hiccup. This was a really hard sell because we needed that CTO who was incumbent to stay. It was his IP. It was his brainchild. We couldn't afford to lose him. And so I spent some time really listening to him and listening to what was most important to him, listening to his hurts and his frustration about getting moved off. But what I realized is his key item that he really wanted was to be able to stay, see this thing through, but be mentored through the process. So he could take that methodology and do it replicably again and again and again. If I can get that, he said, I'm in. And so that's where we landed. I started talking to the other executives on the team, and what I found is that the vision and the technology were all topsy-turvy. They all had different ideas about what was necessary. So I went to the CEO at the end of that morning and said, hey, listen, we've got some disconnect. Let's talk about where the disconnect is. And he said, go headlong into this afternoon and find out what they all have to say. I want you to facilitate us through it. On the vision, we're going to parking lot some of that. We'll do an offsite in a couple of weeks, and we'll get to what needs to happen, but get them talking about it. On the CTO side, let's make sure we know what we need when we walk out of here. And we did just that. At the end of the conversation, the best part is I had a couple of executives walk up and say, thank you. I didn't think we were actually going to have these conversations. They've been so long overdue, and I've been so frustrated, I've been thinking about leaving. And after getting them to a place where they were saying, wow, this is actually going to happen, they got excited. What I want to really drive home here is that if we can get people talking, then we get to a place of cohesion. When there's a place of cohesion, you've got this magnetic organizational kind of pull that will bring the best executives to you, and they'll never want to leave. So that's my pitch. Now I'll move on to the numbers. In our first 6 months, we saw approximately 150K in revenues. Right now, we have about 150 outstanding in contracts, which I expect to sign within the next month. We have 2 previous Heidrick & Struggles executives who are on board and ready to start as backup to help scale. I've also talked, as an exit strategy, I've also talked with my previous colleague who is now the managing partner of the San Francisco office and the Menlo Park office in California. And they would be willing to talk once I get to a certain level of revenues. We're going to patent this process, and we do have a couple of partners that are helping us get there so that we can roll that out. I'll let you ask questions.
I'll jump in. So,
Summer.
clearly you're solving a problem, and it's a problem that's been around. You were with Heidrick, you know this world very well.
Yeah.
And it's candidly a personal pain point as an investor. So I think there's a lot of ways you could go with this. You could continue to grow what you're doing today. I think you've uncovered something, I'll call it employee perspectives, that has a lot of potential. It may be candidly a bit outside of what your traditional business model is, but whoever we had this conversation with before, productizing something there, I think could have a lot of potential as well. So it's a little bit dependent upon where you want to go, because I think you're flirting with a world that's a very different problem than what you've traditionally solved.
I would love your perspective on
Sure.
which direction might be best.
Sure.
I just have comments similar to Brady's. I think positioning yourself as a strategist inside the human capital space is brilliant. I mean, you're trying to understand culture, and you're also trying to understand any kind of disconnects that exist within the company already. One recommendation I would make to you is, and you referenced some of these people already, try to position yourself with strategy consulting firms who are already engaged with companies, who understand that there's change that needs to happen, and then you can be the human capital expert who also understands strategy at the same time.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, it dovetails a lot with what we do with the companies. I mean, our clients are, we want to go in right with the CEO and be his mentor to help him understand the financial side of his business. You can kind of come in and be the same thing, being that chief morale officer to make sure you understand how the thing's working. The question is, how do you scale that? Because that's one of the problems that we have with ours. We have to find other CFOs who know how to do that, and they're not all easy to find. It sounds like you have a couple. So how do you scale that? How do you find, being in the HR side, you know how to go find them. How do you do that? How do you go find more?
That's a great question. Go ahead.
So I know we're out of time, but
Yeah.
I kept thinking to myself, of the hundreds of startups that I've worked with as they scale, retaining talent while you increase the capacity of the executive team. If you wrote that book, I would buy it and read it.
You're on.
Because, I mean, what you just described is like you have some nerdy guy that comes up with a great idea, or a woman, and then that person ends up peaking and becoming necessary but obsolete in terms of some of their function and some of their capabilities. They don't have the capacity to go on. It's a big deal.
So that is the ask today. I would love to work with all of you and your portfolio companies.
Love it. Hey, Summer Anderson.
Thanks, you guys.
Closing the deal.